You've got these acid-producing cells, these parietal cells, creating acid within the lumen of the stomach. The problem is that the acid could burn away, could destroy the mucosal lining of the stomach. And in the diagram, we can see what is a gastric ulcer, an ulcer within the walls of the stomach. So there is a balance. There is a balance to be had between the acid in the lumen and the amount of mucus that is produced. To protect the lining of the stomach, a carpet of alkaline mucus is secreted by the epithelial layer of the stomach. So that produces mucus that lines the internal surface. So the acidic lumen cannot destroy, damage the internal surface. So there's a balance, which is depicted here. Reduction in mucus production or an increase in the acid content of the lumen can lead to perforation of the wall of the stomach. And that can be particularly nasty, can be particularly painful and very serious. Perforation, the contents of the stomach can leak into the peritoneal cavity, leading to peritonitis and infection. Hemorrhaging, if the perforation was to damage blood vessels, could lead to blood in your stools or vomiting out blood if you were to be sick. Bleed into the gastrointestinal tract and it's excreted is how we get it in our stools. Or if the ulcer repairs and you have some scarring, this can cause a blockage. And if the food can't progress down the gastrointestinal tract, then that can lead to a build-up of food within the stomach and you can have projectile vomiting. So although it's really important that we have this acid production in the lumen, it's also important we have this alkaline mucus and we have this balance to prevent the wall of the stomach from being damaged. Let's return to the more of the gross anatomy, the position of the stomach. And here we can see really nicely how the stomach is positioned in situ, how it's actually positioned if you were to open up one's abdomen and view it. The liver here has been lifted up slightly, but like I mentioned before, we can see the lesser curvature of the stomach here. We can see the greater curvature of the stomach here. Up here we've got the fundus, we've got the body, we've got the pylorus, and we've got the pyloric sphincter over here. Remember me saying that the lesser curvature was connected to the liver? Well, here we've got an important membrane that's connecting the stomach to the liver. We'll come across this in later lectures. It's really important. It's the lesser omentum, specifically the hepatogastric ligament of the lesser omentum. We'll come to that later on. So on this side of the screen, we can also see the relations of other organs to the stomach. So on this side, we can see what is the anterior view, and here we can see the posterior view. Now, you may not be familiar with the position of these organs, so it may not make a lot of sense right now, but by the end of the course, when we've spoken about these other regions, these other organs, you'll be able to imagine the precise position of the stomach. So we can see anteriorly, and this links very well to this diagram here. We can see we've got the liver here, and so we can see the liver is having this impression. If the liver had flopped down, if it hadn't been elevated, which we can see in this diagram, it would be lying over the stomach. Over here, we've got the diaphragm. So on this anterior surface of the stomach, we've got the diaphragm, which is coming down, covering this region here. So if you immediately open up the abdomen in this region, you find the stomach. And then down at the bottom, you just have other parts of the anterior abdominal wall where the diaphragm is finished. Importantly though, what does the stomach sit on? What's known as the stomach bed? What lies immediately posterior to the stomach? So for this, we've flopped the liver. We've flopped the stomach over, and posteriorly we can see we have relations to the spleen. So the stomach would be coming in this kind of position here. So immediately behind the stomach, we have the spleen, we have the kidney, we have the pancreas. We can also see in this region down here, we have the transverse mesocolon. We'll look at the transverse mesocolon in more detail later on. So we can see the position and the relations of the stomach to the other abdominal organs.